Brand new details on the mid and post credit scene for the upcoming Superman film have landed online. And well, if these play out exactly as it's been stated, we know a lot about what direction the DC universe is moving forward in, but also where Superman 2 is going to take us. So let's talk about the arrival of the Lanterns and Brainiac. So when it comes to the brand new Superman, this of course is a Superman for a whole new generation of fans. This is going to be the first time we have Superman who just exists in a ongoing DC universe that's already just happening around him. Every other iteration so far, on film at least, has always focused on Superman being a sole hero as they start out. Now, of course, you had Zack Snyder's Snyderverse, which was intended to be a standalone universe like this with a few Easter eggs, but then, once they figured we got to compete with the MCU, this all changed. Over on the TV side, we've played with the idea of him coexisting with other superheroes in the universe, more specifically Supergirl and Superman and Lois, but even that series quickly abandoned that idea in favor of giving us a heartfelt Superman story that doesn't depend on the rest of the universe. So, for lack of a better term, this is going to be the first time we see Superman truly exist in the DC universe. For better or for worse, and again, we're not going to know till we see the film for ourselves. Now, of course, this makes this a far cry from the version we saw previously, which of course would be Man of Steel. And you know, this is supposed to be completely different. They're going for completely different vibes. Every aesthetic is different. How they're approaching the characters' mannerisms and history is clearly different. And this is going to be reflected in the film itself. So to start, we are going to dive right into what makes this Superman different before we get to the mid and post credit scene, because it's important to lay down a foundation and a baseline. So we know for a fact that this is not really an origin story. While they are going to touch upon elements of it, this is a story about Superman and his early days in Metropolis. And we can see that there's a lot of stuff going on in the film that is further going to touch upon all of Superman's duties, how much he can take on, the perception of Superman and other heroes. So while we watch the trailers and read the interviews, you start to understand that this is sort of like a comic book. It almost seems like that's the pacing of the film, where we're going to have many adventures showing us what Superman can do. Now, of course, there's multiple other elements in this that need to be brought up, like the living DC universe that includes the Justice Gang, which include Green Lantern, put a pin in that, but not this specific Green Lantern. Also, characters like Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, and of course, countless other ones like Mr. Terrific, Hammer of Barovia, whoever that ends up being, Rick Flag from Creature Commandos, characters from Peacemaker. They're starting to connect the dots and this universe. And while there is some confusion still among how does this film pick up off the events of Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, which are canon, we know that it's loose canon and some characters carry over, others are completely different. They're just dealing with different things. So in this film, we obviously see that Lex Luthor discovers the Fortress of Solitude. We can see that Ultraman is in this, and there is a giant, crazy-looking eyeball starfish thing, villain, jellyfish. I'm not even sure what it is. It looks different depending on how you look at it and what footage or picture, but clearly it's a big deal. Superman is going to stop this thing, but what does this in fact mean for the rest of the universe? Because the rest of the DC universe exists, right? So why aren't they showing up to help? And also, why are we largely skipping the origin story? Well, that's where the mid and post credit scenes come in. And these are a big deal, so this is going to be sort of like a final spoiler warning for you guys. So if you don't want the mid and post-credit scenes potentially spoiled, please turn away now. Now, in case you're not familiar with how these leaked or the nature of them, WB and DC still do public test screenings, and sometimes details leak out, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So per test screenings that were conducted recently, the mid-credit scene of the film is going to be rather different and interesting, and honestly, something not a whole lot of people expect. So the mid-credit scene is going to set up a future threat for the Man of Steel. And reportedly, what we see is the mention and the first appearance of Brainiac on film. And Brainiac is going to be established as the man or the machine that destroyed Krypton. Now, of course, this isn't anything new. DC Comics has played around with this, whether it was a retcon or not, or a completely different and new universe. And what else makes this interesting is that this is a concept that was going to be explored with Man of Steel. Not the destruction of Krypton, but using Brainiac as the villain. And the biggest, and I would say the best version of Brainiac that's appeared so far in live action, which admittedly isn't a whole lot, would of course be the Krypton TV series, which nailed Brainiac in my opinion. Now, while the reports in regards to how they want to use Brainiac are few and far in between, some are suggesting that he's definitely going to be the villain of Superman 2, while others believe that he could be set up as the villain to the first Justice League film that James Gunn is going to make. Now, of course, up until we see the film for ourselves and see what their plans are, and ultimately what James Gunn, Peter Safran, and WB announce, we're not going to know. But I think setting him up as sort of a down-the-road villain, even if they take the Thanos-like approach, where maybe he is in charge of trying to set up multiple things that are happening. Maybe he connects to Lanterns and the whole gods and monsters thing. Maybe he's going to be revealed to also somehow be involved with the events of Supergirl to a degree. Therefore, we can start establishing this character and maybe even the bottle cities and what he's doing, which honestly I think would be perfect for this. So they already got a great in. Now, previously I said put a pin in Green Lantern. Well, that's because it's time to talk about the post-credit scene. So the post-credit scene is a bit different. You would think that these two would be swapped, and maybe they still will be when the final film comes out, but the post-credit scene features Green Lantern. Now, this is not Guy Gardner played by the one and only Nathan Fillion. Instead, in the film, they're going to establish the basic idea of the Green Lantern Corps, and of course, everything they're doing, how they're intergalactic police squad. But the post-credit scene reportedly features Superman, who is then met by Hal Jordan. Yes, Kyle Chandler appears in the flesh as Green Lantern, and not just in his civilian clothing, he is fully lanterned up. Now, while there are some conflicting reports in regards to what happens with the character and why he's here, according to these reports, the big idea here is to establish that there's a lot more going on than Superman is aware of, and that there's an idea to sort of put together, I guess, their own team. So think of the Justice League, right? Because the Justice Gang exists, but that's a byproduct of the villainous Maxwell Lord doing his thing. This would be the good guys going, we can't just let a corporatized version of heroes run around and answer to billionaires. We got to do our own thing. So think of this like Tony Stark and his team versus Captain America and his team. Independent versus government funded. That's what Green Lantern apparently wants, and he's going to tease his adventure in the Lanterns TV series about how he's going to the Deep South to uncover a mystery. Combine this with the fact that we've heard that Lanterns is going to feature a significant cameo, if not multiple, I could honestly see the ending of that series also featuring Superman to pay it back. So now you kind of know the basic outline of the film and what the 2 post-credit scenes are that were shot. And honestly, they sound pretty incredible. And like they're setting up a lot of stuff to pay off down the road, which sounds pretty amazing. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.